welcome again to another episode of SacTown Talks, where we talk everything California politics in Sacramento. Please like and subscribe. Today we have a very special guest joining us, Senator Bill Dodd. Senator Dodd, good to see you again.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here with you.
I know. This is the first time we've had you in person here. You know, I think this is our fourth time on the show, but first time in person, and you just feel the energy, you know?
Let's do this.
I know. It's great. It's great. So, you know, this is your final year, huh? You were elected 12 years ago. Is that right?
10.
10 years ago?
I lost 2 years because I went from the Assembly to the Senate after 2 years instead of 4.
Oh, okay. So you could actually technically have 2 more years in the Assembly if you wanted to?
Oh, yeah. That would be a lot of fun. Not a chance.
No? Not going back?
No.
Oh, wow. So, you know, I guess in this decade, right, you've had 100 bills you've done. You've been signed into law, 100 bills. Pretty big deal, getting 10 a year. And you still have, what, 22 this year?
22 bills in this year. Yeah, I mean, who's counting? I think it's up to like maybe 113 right now with still those bills, to go. So, it's been, you can't do that without having great staff. Mm-hmm. And let me tell you, I'm so blessed that I've been able to keep a lot of my Capitol staff all 10 years.
That's amazing.
I think it's something like 7 of the people that I have were with me when I first started.
Wow. So Les and Ezra, they're day one.
And Marisol,
daughters. Wow.
To name 3 of them, yes.
That's amazing. What do you attribute that to? Just picking the right staff, or being a great boss?
I think picking the right staff is one, but you got to have I think I've got an awesome chief of staff in Ezra Shaban. I mean, he communicates well with the employees, and I was an employer, for 25 years in business, and I know and understand the only way you can be successful is to have good people around you, and you have to treat them well,
right? And
you have to treat them with respect, and when they have issues or problems, you have to listen. It's really not that hard.
Yeah. So, when you first started, you were a businessman, right? You ran a water company, right? A Culligan water station.
Right.
Whatever made you run for your first election?
I had successfully sold the company in 1998. I had a 5-year agreement with the company to continue to run it and be their West Coast, expansion manager. And after 2 years, just working for somebody else just didn't really, do it for me. I followed through and on the contract for all 5 years because it was good for me to do that. But at the same time, I looked into, was just looking into other options, and I never thought I'd get into politics, but I looked into running for the Board of Supervisors in Napa County. And
did somebody say like, "Oh, Bill, you'd be a great politician," or did anybody push you into this, or you just woke up one morning and think,
honest to goodness, I was at the golf range hitting balls one day, and the former county supervisor in the district was hitting shots right next to me. And he made that suggestion. You ought to just check it out, Bill. I think you'd be good. So I did. And, there was a big rift between the environmentalists and the grape growers in those days. And there still is. Mm-hmm. There wasn't for a long while because we did some things. But nevertheless, there was 3 people running, and I kind of ran right in the middle. and won in the primary.
And, how did you campaign? Like, did you, door-to-door mail, like?
I hit every door in the districts. Napa's districts aren't that big,
right.
But there's a lot of rural areas. So I either walked every door twice or called every phone in the real rural areas a couple times, and had a great team. Ran a chamber of commerce style of, campaign, and was fortunate to at the end get the wine industry, behind me. And it was great. I stayed 15 years, and we did the flood control project in downtown Napa, which delivered about $1 billion in economic vitality to downtown Napa. At the same time, it protected hundreds and hundreds of properties from constant flooding year in and year out. And then we created 900 acres of tidal wetlands in South County, just opening that up and letting the floodwaters, go there instead of, up above. But it was a complex project. We Really got a lot of help from Senator Feinstein, Congressman Mike Thompson, and the Army Corps of Engineers. But it was when you look back on that, and it was like $500 million on time, on budget, and it really worked.
It's interesting. Like so this is what, your 25th year being elected?
Yes.
Kind of, what are some of your favorite projects you've worked on, your most memorable things that you look back now and you're like, wow, I did that, or I had a hand in that?
Well, I think one of them is the Berryessa Snow Mountain executive order that President Obama had an executive order on. I did a resolution. It was the first state resolution ever that asked the President of the United States to sign an executive order. And we're really pleased he did. And I got invited back to the White House, to the Oval Office, to see him do that. That was quite a thrill, for me. Yeah. And, I think in the area, when I woke up on, October 8th, 2017, I never expected wildfires, insurance, PG&E, CAL FIRE, any number of these, areas to be a part of my, my being in Sacramento. Yet it really dominated my time here in the legislature. So with legislation, we created the Office of Wildfire Technology, which really is groundbreaking, frankly, because it allows new technologies to come to the fore. Generally, CAL FIRE always waited on the federal government to do whatever they do, testing different chemicals or different technologies. Now we do that here in the state of California because we know the problems we have. Right. We know we have to get out in front of them. It's important for us to do. And then just other areas of wildfire management, and the Wildfire Threat Integration Center, which really takes all the data and everything from all the utilities, the weather stations, everything, and brings it into one place during these fires so that we can manage these incidents quickly. And then helping CAL FIRE. CAL FIRE has been an amazing asset, as has California Office of Emergency Services, been helping them promote the need for budget items to have this CAL FIRE Air Force that we've got right now. And I'm telling you, it is incredibly important that we do all the fire-wise stuff to reduce fuels and everything else, harden homes. That's working. It's working. The money we're giving to them, but also this Air Force and getting on these fires quickly. It showed last summer. Last summer was really our first. Now our weather was better too, granted, and everything, but it was one of the first years that we were completely staffed up on that, and it's got to work this summer. I know that luck and hope aren't good precursors for for where we need to be in the state of California, but we've got to have another great track record because of all the insurance issues and everything with the FAIR plan. And I mean, it's a mess, candidly, but I think that mess, we could climb out of that in the next 12 to 18 months.
Right. It is amazing because every time we talk wildfires every year, it seemed like it. And 27, 2018, 2019, 2020, horrible. And we just kind of got used to it. Like, oh, you can't go outside. The air's bad. Fire here, fire there. We didn't have any last year. We haven't had any this year. Knock on wood. But it does seem like it's working.
It does. But we still have a lot of areas in this state that are a real risk, a real threat, and making sure that Air Force is up and ready. Which I think Chief Tyler. I've really respected all the CAL FIRE chiefs that we've had over the years. In fact, they're good friends of mine. But I really believe that Chief Tyler brings a new dimension to this area, and he and his staff are well poised to operate at a very, very high level. But we've also got to have good luck with weather and these climatic conditions that climate change brings us. We just have to be a little bit lucky and say a prayer or two.
Right. So in kind of the 10 years you've been here, you've been kind of lucky. You've always had kind of a budget that was growing, right? Or a surplus. This year you have a big deficit. Kind of, how's the budget looking in your mind, and kind of, how are you guys handling it?
Well, it's tough. I mean, candidly, when you go from a $95 billion surplus a couple of years ago to where we were last year, 18 to 20 billion, and this year, I mean, we've taken care of the first $18 billion of with early action, which I appreciate Senator McGuire and Senator Weiner for their strong advocacy of that early action, and then the assembly coming along and the governor all agreeing to that. People feel like that's smoke and mirrors and that it shouldn't be done that way. Well, look at what it does is there's going to be, we're going to, this isn't like the federal government where we print money.
Right.
We absolutely have to pass a balanced budget every single year. So the early action plan was not a gimmick. It was eyes wide open. We knew what needed to be done. And those things, whether you like them or not, are going to help us get a balanced budget this year. Now, the governor's May revise is going to be coming out. It's going to be interesting to see what is in that, but we'll have our challenges cut out for us. But I think from a Senate standpoint, what we're really hoping is that there are a lot of areas. For example, we saw when we had to cut back on schools the last time we went through this. For me, that is a major line in the sand. Cutting education, no, and hell no. Our public schools have been through enough. We've got to continue funding them and making sure that our students have a quality education. And that's really what we're just, frankly, after all these years of this debate, they're finally getting around to, okay, what is it going to take to have a quality education, student success? And I'm just opposed at any level from K all the way up to community college, Cal State,
Right.
University of California for cutting any of those funds.
Right. You recently designated April Community College Month. Can you kind of talk to us about that and kind of your passion for community colleges?
Well, I've got something like 7 community colleges in my district. And on top of that, my son, Jeff, is the president of Napa Valley College. And my chief of staff, Ezra, I know he got elected to the Community College Board of Santa Rosa, JC, and I think he's moving up rapidly as well. So we have a lot of interest in community colleges. And look, that is the way forward. My son went to a 4-year school, quickly saw that wasn't going to be for him. And it was a real small school, backed out of it, went to community college, went to UC Santa Barbara, and then to law school. And today's a successful attorney. And he really believes that community college experience helped him prioritize what he was going to do in his life. And I see that for so many kids, whether it's a professional career, whether you're going to go to a 4-year college, or you're going to learn a trade.
Right.
There's so many opportunities by going to our community colleges. That's why they're important.
It's amazing. You hear so much about the student debt and student loan debt and these kids taking on hundreds of $1,000s in debt in these 4 years. You can go to community college for nearly free. You
Stay
get
with
2
mom
years
and
for
dad
free.
2 more years. You'll get through that, honestly.
Would you rather stay with mom and dad or get hundreds of thousands?
That's why I went
in debt,
to a
right?
4-year school, but I got out in 4 years because I had an old man that laid it on the line and said, you've got 4 years and 4 years only.
Exactly.
If it's not 4 years, you're out, and I'm not paying for anything else.
And where was this at? Where'd you go to college?
Chico State,
Yeah.
Cal State.
A hard place to get out in 4 years.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
No kidding.
Yeah.
That's discipline.
Something else you're working on, Vallejo police staffing, always hard. It was funny. It seemed like, if you wanted to be a cop or a teacher 10 years ago, it was impossible to do so. And now it's impossible to find people to fill these positions. Can you talk about the struggle of, finding qualified officers in this area and kind of what you need to do to, keep people safe?
Well, yeah, absolutely. This is a problem statewide, not just for Vallejo, but Vallejo is acute. It's in critical condition. There are such a low amount of new officers getting into the business, and everybody's recruiting. Some law enforcement agencies are doing hiring bonuses, and basically what it is just they're stealing away from other agencies. That's really no way to to operate, but that's what's going on out in the marketplace. Now, Vallejo has had uh, an abysmal record with their police department, over the last, 15 years or so. They've had a number of, officer involved deaths, um, and a lot of scrutiny that comes with that, and understandably. And I don't disagree with that scrutiny. I think it was important to, make sure that we hold police accountable for what they do. But, unfortunately, because of organizations like that, that spread to a lot of law enforcement agencies that were outstanding in every single way, shape, or form. And so everybody gets painted with that same broad brush. So over the years, what's finally happened today is the city of Vallejo has 135 slots. He paid budgeted slots for sworn officers, and they have 35.
Whoa.
35.
Wow, they're
And
100
so
down.
so there are times where, they might have, in a town of over 100,000 people, one patrol car out.
Right.
Or, we're not going to.
And they're good paying jobs too, aren't they?
They're good paying jobs. And they're having a hard time recruiting because of their reputation, in my view. I'm coming out with that. So what we've done is we've worked with the Solano County Sheriff. He's got a great reputation. People want to work for them. And so basically, this bill that we have before the Employment PERS Committee seeks to allow officers who have retired to come back. And instead of, I can't remember how many hours they can work, because that was the pension reform act that we had here in Sacramento many moons ago, probably 15, 20 years ago, that you can't work over so many hours because they don't want double dipping. Well, I understand that double dipping is, has been a problem in the past. We've got it under control. If we don't get this law enforcement situation under control, we're going to lose these communities, and they're going to be totally out of control. Imagine if you had on one of the college campuses there. I don't want to give anybody any ideas what's going on around colleges, because there's a number of college campuses in the city of Vallejo. And imagine what would happen. They would have no police to come in. So all that does is taxes the sheriff without compensation. It taxes highway patrol without compensation. So now there's a program where we're hoping that this bill will pass. The sheriff can hire retired annuitants, and for a specified period of time. We're not opening up the floodgates forever. This is like a 3-year program, so we can get ahead of the program. The sheriff will help. The city of Vallejo is not even in the program anymore because that was just met with too much consternation. Right. So we think that there's a there, and we'll get some much needed help for these residents, my constituents in the city of Vallejo. All they want is a safe community.
Right. So here we are in the thick of committee season. You said you had 22 bills. Kind of what's your ledge package look like this year, and kind of how you faring so far?
I'm faring pretty well. I have a number of challenging bills. I've got a charter school bill that's always fraught with concerns. Drama, yeah. Essentially, it comes down to this: when and I don't even remember my own bill numbers, so I can't tell you. I'm going to remember Assembly Member Patrick O'Donnell's bill number from 3 or 4 years ago. Well, he had the charter school framework bill, but there was a loophole in that bill, and it allowed charter schools that had been turned down locally from both the district and the county Office of Education to do, and even the state, to do an end run and do a county-wide charter. And it also allows charter schools, particularly in areas where you have declining enrollment, unified school districts are shutting down campuses, and we've got charter schools trying to come in and advance an education, in the case of Napa, between 75 and 300 kids at the expense of 16 to 1,800 kids. It just doesn't make sense. We've got to start focusing on student success in the classroom, and that's where our money needs to be. Now, I have awesome, high-performing charter schools in my district. I support charter schools. And one of the concerns they have, and rightfully have, is that perhaps our bill has some language in it that could impact them adversely when they go to re-up their charter school authorization. And so I'm working with them right now to try to alleviate those concerns, because I want to do no harm to existing charter schools. But if you're planning on expanding in areas that have either been under receivership, school districts that have either been under receivership or have declining enrollment and selling off campuses just to make ends meet, that area is not for you.
Right.
With this bill anyway.
That's bad. And is that out of Education Committee and on its way to the Assembly, or kind of where's that at right now?
Right now, we got it out of the Employment Committee, PERS. And, excuse me, the Education Committee. I'm thinking of the other bill. The Education Committee, and it's in appropriations.
Right. The war in Ukraine with Russia has been a big topic these last 4 years. You have a sister state relationship with one of your cities in your district. Can you kind of talk about that and kind of how that evolved?
Well, it's a state relationship. Okay. So it's the state of California, and they don't call them states, and I can't recollect right now what they call them, but they are states. It's Kyiv. We've all heard of Kyiv on the news time or two, and it is a relationship that has gone back, and basically what we're doing is just making it official with the state of California, and it was unanimously passed in the Senate and the Assembly. We just recently received delegates from Kyiv and Ukraine, and and they're just so proud. They're just so proud of the relationship. They're so happy and enthused and appreciative of the support they're getting now that our divided Congress took so darn long to get out the door. But let's not complain. It's out the door, and hopefully it'll help them gain their freedom so they can get some sense of normalcy in the communities throughout Ukraine.
Right. We were talking earlier about you've been in both the Assembly and the Senate, and you kind of switched over. Kind of what do you like about this being a senator in comparison to Assembly, and kind of why was that switch important to you?
Well, first of all, the idea to be able to serve 1 million constituents is pretty humbling. Not that 500,000 is not in the Assembly. That was good. There's 80 people obviously in the Assembly and 40 in the Senate. At least at the time, I felt like it is the upper house officially, but I thought it really was, and it can be in many respects. The house of more experienced legislators. Right. It's not necessarily the case today, but nevertheless, it's a place where we can have conversations and perhaps get more things done, and without the drama that there is naturally. If there were 80 people in the Senate right now, you added 40 more people, the same thing would happen. So I'm not casting aspersions on any individuals. I think the leadership in the Assembly is doing a great job, and the Assembly does well. But I just think that was the reason why I want to leave. And the fact that it was an election every 4 years instead of 2 years didn't hurt either.
Right. We have these 12-year term limits. Kind of after serving a full term, kind of what are your thoughts on term limits? And you think they're good, or you think you should be able to have more time?
Well, first of all, the law is law. Right. I'm happy. I'm ready, and I'm ready to have this chapter be done in my life.
Is 10 years a long time, or is it?
Yeah, it's a long time. Quick? But the interesting thing, no, I don't like term limits. There might be age caps and stuff, and I certainly think in the federal government, given where we have, that could be one of the answers. I don't necessarily think term limits is the right thing, because essentially you're going to have we're losing so much institutional memory in the California State Senate this year. At the end of this year, it's going to be it's going to be a drastic loss. It's going to be a brain drain, and the truth of the matter is I know more about what I'm doing, how to do it. My staff does, the organization from my Senate team is more well-positioned to benefit my district, to benefit the state of California today than ever. Mm. And so I don't necessarily think the term limits, is working. I would expect that you're going to see a lot of retreading, if you will, of issues in the state that have, bills that have been killed in the past is, we don't need those. We don't want those. They'll be back, and it'll be the full Lobbyist Employment Act.
Right. One of your favorite terms.
Yes. You've heard that one before.
I have. I've heard that before. You even passed laws to stop, Lobbyist Full Employment Act. Coming in your last year, did you come in, with a different mentality? Are you thinking differently, or are you just kind of operating as you always have?
I'm thinking differently. I do want my time in the legislature to be one that will be remembered, that will be valuable, not only to me, but to my colleagues and to my constituents. So we're paying extra special attention to our constituents in all 22 cities and the 6 counties that I represent. Also, I want to be attentive to, I try to the younger people in my caucus to be able to, they may not agree with my advice that I'm giving them. And I always say, my advice is worth what you're paying me for this, but I really would like you to hear what I have to say on these issues here.
Right.
So, because I think it's important, I want to leave to the best I can, a Senate that, is wiser and better for future generations for the state. And then finally, I want to look back, on this year, and the way I'm approaching bills is a little bit different. I think we, as an institution, particularly Democrats, Republicans do it on their side too, we're so overly concerned about the feelings of our fellow senators. Well, I'm sorry. We all have votes here, and we all have to not only vote our districts, but vote our conscience. And so I'm trying to be more resolute on my votes and not going along to get along so much, but to also try to talk behind the scenes to an author and say, hey, this is why I can't support your bill. It's nothing personal. Mm-hmm. And I really wish that the institution in both houses, because I saw that on both sides, did more of that. We'd have better bills coming out of the legislature and less of a need to come back and do we need to do legislative oversight. But I'm working on 2 things, this year that is legislative oversight because of a little bit too overreaching, legislation, both in the area of local electeds in terms of the money they can collect and then be contributed to them. We don't want any pay-to-play scandals, but we don't want to make this so tough to comply with that different agencies and businesses and everything stop donating at whatever levels that are allowable by law
in
each community,
donate, right?
And then go to dark money and do these IE campaigns. So I think that, the one bill I have to reform, that Levine Act is important. And then another bill with this fees bill, which was a junk fees bill, which I was very proud to run in conjunction with the Attorney General last year and Senator Skinner. Junk fees, like when you go to a hotel, you go online all the time and say, oh, we've got a special price of $249. Well, then you get there at checkout and there's a parking fee and a resort fee and
service
charge and all these different things. Well, we put a framework around that last year, and I think it's working. We've worked with a lot of different agencies on this, and in concert tickets, the same thing. It's just ridiculous. Well, we've got a whole industry, the restaurant industry, that's up in arms right now. And, I've got a different viewpoint than the Attorney General on this, but the law is the law that we passed. The Attorney General believes that it includes the restaurants. Well, that was not my legislative intent, because I believe that if you look on a restaurant menu and it has all the prices on the menu, that you've done your job in price transparency, and you don't have to include it all, in your price. If you want to put, hamburgers, $12, and then down at the bottom, say a service charge of 15 or 18% will be added for the staff, or whatever they choose to do, that should be fine. That's transparency. But, unfortunately, we have to do, some other things to make sure that that law is enforced as intended.
Yeah. During the pandemic, like, one of the coolest things that you were a part of is kind of like the outdoor eating, the outdoor food and beverage, the concept of being able to kind of
cocktails to go.
Yeah, exactly. Has any of that sticked, and has that kind of changed the restaurant scene?
It really has. It really has. We've had a lot of areas expanded. That obviously comes through my governmental organizations committee. We oversee all the issue areas surrounding the alcohol beverage control, and allowing businesses to do more has been a lifeline. Allowing businesses to have cocktails to go was a lifeline during COVID, but it's still a lifeline. I was in a restaurant in Napa a few weeks ago, and the bartender was telling me, man, that was the greatest thing for us since then, but we still have people that are calling up and ordering our craft cocktails to go. So it's pretty fun. Yeah, and then Senator Wiener has done a number of bills like that in San Francisco that we've helped get across the finish line, which is helping the businesses in downtown San Francisco, which I'm sure that's a tough road to hoe, but they're working on that diligently.
It's interesting, kind of you're talking about the difference between the Assembly and the Senate, but kind of like pre-COVID and post-COVID. Do you notice a difference in kind of how business is conducted and how you kind of work with your colleagues at all?
I think it's probably more because we have so many newer people than really COVID. Now that everybody's back, I think we're starting to get back to the basics. But maybe one thing I am seeing is a lot of people deciding from Southern California or even from the Bay Area not wanting to come to Sacramento for that meeting, and then having a meeting on Zoom. So that's what I'm seeing. But by and large, I think we're getting back to normal. I'm starting to see people everywhere in the swing space and over in the Capitol building. It's getting better all the time. But boy, that was well, you remember, walking through the halls.
Oh, bizarre, yeah.
Yeah, you could roll 10 bowling balls down any of the aisles and not hit anybody.
Exactly. Doing committee in a remote location with a mask on.
Oh, yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I was talking to a former member, and he said, there's not a new law that needs to be created. We've done all the laws. What needs to be done is oversight. That's kind of something you touched on. More oversight needs to be done. Kind of what's the best way for a member to kind of do oversight and kind of, make sure that, these agencies and kind of the bills we've already done are actually being enforced?
Right. I think those issue areas are important to committee chairs to be able to do those type of things. But more importantly is listening, in your district or listening throughout the state, the people that are talking about, hey, this is really hard to do. So those are individual bills that, seek to restrict how they're working and everything. That's really how I've learned about that. On the other hand, legislative oversight to really get a good understanding is how's all this money we're spending in homelessness to Project Home Key, any of these things. I'm not being critical because we're doing all we can, and I think we're getting better at that, every single year. But there's got to be an accountability in a lot of these areas. What happened in EDD and the money that was stolen? Right. There's got to be some final accountability in all these areas. That's legislative oversight. The insurance commissioner, who I think is doing a great job with these new regulations and everything, but legislative oversight is working with them, having hearings, and making sure that they're on time, on schedule so that at the end of next year, those regulations go in and we can have a stable insurance market, perhaps, within a year to 18 months.
Right. Yeah, that's kind of a big issue that we're hearing a lot from people, is probably in your district too, right? Because it's probably super expensive, or it's impossible to find insurance.
It's a critical problem. We have people going naked. For those of you out there that don't know what naked is, I know you know what naked is, but naked in this sense of the term is no insurance at all. And I have a good friend that has a couple wineries, and they have no insurance. And they had to make that decision based on, having to pay premiums of, upwards of $500,000 a year. Well, it kind of makes a little bit more sense that when you have those times that you have private fire companies. And I know that fire departments don't like that. Mm-hmm. And I don't necessarily like it either. But the insurance calamity that we have here, because we don't have a stable insurance market, insurers can't make the money they need to make in this state. And it's not worth investing in. These changes that the insurance commissioner is putting forward, I believe, will take care of those. They're really simple. Reinsurance, allowing catastrophic modeling, and getting them rate increases faster. And so everybody, when I say that, they say, oh my God, we don't need any more rate increases. Well, look at the rate increases we're getting right now compared to your normal policy price premium are 4X, 8X, 15X, 15 times the amount of your premium. We're not talking about those kind of increases. If all the insurance companies were getting somewhere in the neighborhood of a 20 to 25, 30 even % rate increase for a while, that would, in my view, plus the reinsurance and plus catastrophic modeling instead of historical modeling, which doesn't make any sense to me, we would create a stable insurance market. So we're not looking at having the insurance companies in the admitted market do 2X, 3X, 4X. We're just looking at a nominal increase so that we can move forward, because people don't have insurance. And if we have another huge, God forbid, calamity, we're in trouble.
Yeah. And it was pretty interesting, like talking to a lot of the victims of the fires. You think, oh, my house burned down. Oh, well, they're giving me all this money to rebuild it. Well, when everyone has to rebuild at the same time, prices go up, right? It's not.
The supply demand, problem there with price increases, the surge and everything just makes it impossible.
Yeah, especially with today's home prices, it's not easy. One thing I notice is homelessness in your district seems to be less of a problem than other districts. Kind of what is kind of going right in your district, and kind of what are these cities doing that some other cities might not be?
Well, I'd like to tip my hat to the cities that in my district for what they've done right. But I've got to tell you, I think a lot of it is the state dollars that have come in. It's given them the ability to do the things that they need to do locally to take people off the street. This new care court, I'm fully supportive of it. People that are mentally deranged, can't take care of themselves, for them to continue to stay out on the streets and people just walk over them doesn't make any sense at all. We need to get them off the streets legally. We need to get them the support services, the wraparound services that they need and deserve. And then, fortunately, they've got enough places where I think the city of Napa's homelessness problem has gone down from 630 to 480. So they're making it a dent in it, but that's still, for Napa is still a big number. There's a lot of work to do, but it's just a matter of resources and then also having these private nonprofits really being involved in doing the Lord's work in the community.
Yeah. Your commute, right? You commute back and forth from Napa here every day, put the miles in. And thanks to, I guess, a lot of your work over the years, we're finally getting that causeway a little wider. We're getting Highway 37 a little wider to make that drive easier. So when you're driving back and forth, what is Senator Dodd doing in his car? Other than making phone calls. What's he listening to?
I'm listening to podcasts.
Yeah.
Right now, I'm hopefully, like on this East Coast swing that the Giants are on. I'm listening to the Giants game because it's already on when I'm going home.
You're a loyal fan, man.
I am a loyal Giants fan. I listen to KNBR Sports Phone 68 a lot of times, but then I've got some playlists and some relaxing music, and like you said, I do a lot of phone work, as well.
Yeah,
but try to not be distracted. Try to be safe, and I've there by the grace of God go I've been very safe on the roads for 10 years.
Yeah, how many miles do you drive every year?
I haven't looked at it in a while. I've got a 2018 car that's got, we can do the math real quick, about 140,000 miles on it. So that's about 25,000 miles a year. I don't use it I'm just going around and, when I go to events and I have staff take me, we're not using my car necessarily.
Well, thank you so much for coming on and spending some time. Always great catching up and seeing what you're up to. And I hope you get to at least 130 bills signed into law by the end of the year. That's the challenge.
Thanks, Jared. Right. You're a good man. I really appreciate it. This was always fun. And I remember my first year in, I was in here with you.
I know. I remember when you had that thick beard. So, looking good, clean shaven. And thank you for joining us. And always a pleasure, Bill.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Take care.